Hello, and welcome to Fresh Blood, a podcast about killing it in the age of ageism, where we prove that new blood does not necessarily equal young blood. Here to discuss what it takes to have continued success through life, I'll be your host, Jolie Downs. With over 20 years of executive recruiting experience, I've learned how much we can grow and be inspired by other people's stories. I'm excited to share that with you here on Fresh Blood. Today, we are talking with June Ahern. She has had a successful career as a psychic and medium, as well as a metaphysical and parapsychology teacher and speaker for over 40 years. She has successfully operated her business. She has sustained her family with a single parent income, and she never advertised, yet her business schedule consistently filled. June has authored 4 books. She works with law enforcement on missing and murdered person cases, and she appears as a paranormal investigator in a documentary series with The Haunted Bay, which is seen on Amazon Prime and YouTube. June, thank you so much for joining us on Fresh Blood. I'm really excited to learn more about your story. Could you tell us a little bit about how you knew you were psychic and how you built and created this successful practice?
Well, and thank you for having me on, I had a near-death experience when I was a young woman. And as I said, I went to the other side, but at the pearly gates, they sent me back.
Oh my goodness. That's insane. What happened?
Well, I was literally standing outside a beautiful ornate gate and looking at relatives, ones that I didn't even know, but knew of through my mother on the other side. And they greeted me and they were happy and cheerful. And then they waved me away and they said, "Go back, not now." And then I woke up in the hospital right after surgery. I had a very, near fatal automobile accident. It took me years to recover. But after I came out of that, I began to know things about people. You would say deja vu, some of it. And it scared, I was uncertain about it. I really didn't understand it at all for me, although I had been somewhat involved. I was, a child of the 60s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that helped.
Yeah, that helped. And my mother always liked mysteries. And she had had a visit from her brother who had drowned at sea during Second World War. So, I was familiar with that, but not for me. I never had anything. And it just began to fall into place. I had a card reading before this accident, and she had said, "Oh, you're going to have this thing. There's going to be 2 men." Well, I was going with one guy, and I went out with another guy that got in the accident with. So I became interested in that. How did she know those things? And I got a book on how to read the playing deck of cards. And from there, I went on to reading tarot. I had to have subjects to practice on. So I would carry cards and read for people all over, my family, my friends, their friends. And I found out a teacher took me aside. I took a class and she said, you really have a gift for this. And that's how it started. It was an interest. It became a hobby. And then it became a business. Nothing that I can't say I planned it. At that stage, I really didn't plan it. I just thought, well, I'll take a few bucks for somebody coming for a reading, whatever. I could have a regular job. And I did have a regular job.
Yeah. I'm curious because, going through something like that, a serious accident, I'm sure with a lot of rehabilitation, was there anything from that experience that you found helped carry you through the struggle?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It was a frightening experience, but it really brought up my curiosity. Like, why did this happen? How does it happen? Does anybody else, has anybody else had it? Who can I talk to about this? And back in the 70s, there was not like it is now. Nobody even heard of, very little near-death experiences. Now they have organizations all over that talk about it, not back then. And then Dr. Raymond Moody came out about 1978 with a book, and he was really a forerunner for that mainstream audience, life after life. I began to read that and realize that there were other people that had this experience. And so it developed in me a real sense of I had to find out. And I think that is really important to anybody that wants to be able to go on I have to find out why, how, who.
That's crazy. Now, and so as you were developing your psychic skills, did you have other work that you were doing, or was this something that you started and you were full time in?
No, I had other work. I mean, I had to pay the rent. It started out with an interest, and I began to educate myself and a curiosity. And I worked other jobs. I went back after a period of time of being off for quite a while. I went back to the job I had before the accident. But there was such an unsettled feeling in me from then on in. I didn't necessarily feel, well, certainly as a young woman with scars on her face, serious scars, I didn't feel I quite belonged. You know, when you're young, you have like a group of people you hang out with. You know, remember the old days where you actually went to nightclubs and bars? And I didn't feel like there was something in me. I didn't feel like I belonged anymore with my family, my friends, with people. You know, I came from a rather strict religious household, and so I had other jobs. I felt like I was living a double life, so to speak.
Well, a lot of people, I'm sure, feel that way when, as you age, as you grow older, we change, and life throws us a lot of different things, and it veers our paths in different ways. And oftentimes we will find ourselves a little bit maybe estranged from the group that we had, or a little more alone, feeling a little more alone. How did you deal with that?
Well, I went along with it, and that's an absolute truth. What you just said, as you go through life and your interests start to change, and you find out that the people you're with, it's nothing bad about them. It's just you're changing. I took my studies in the paranormal, the metaphysics, spirituality. I took it all to myself, and I studied it myself, and I shared it with very little people, because most people looked at me and said, "Boy, you're kind of cuckoo."
It,
You really believe that?
there's different levels of mind opening that people have.
And so then I would meet other people in, say, a workshop, and some of my friends believed in me, very little of them, but believed in me. So they would bring somebody they know for me to practice my readings, to do my readings with them. And I just slowly drifted away from people that no longer seemed to fulfill my life, and was attracted to people I could talk openly about what I was doing. As I said, I came from a religious household. You did not talk about reading the tarot. You did not talk about going to the other side and coming back. It just wasn't within our religious beliefs.
So you started to feel like you were an edited version of yourself around.
Yeah, I had to, at first I used to be careful around, especially the family. And then I just decided that it wasn't for me to go along with those beliefs anymore. So I had to develop different relationships and different people. It was a slow process. But as I went to different workshops and I learned from other people, I felt like I belonged. I could talk openly of what I was doing within classes and workshops. And then I was asked to talk more. I was asked, would you teach me? Would you show me? And so, although I didn't advertise any way for my readings at all, ever, I was always filled my schedule. But I did go out and advertise a market for a class I was giving, like a tarot class or an ESP class. And back then we didn't have internet, so the only way you advertised really is you went around all over to the bulletin boards, like I'm in San Francisco, and you put them up all over the place. You drove around in a car and you put bullet papers up.
I remember those days. The bulletin board were fascinating. Um, so you've done a lot with your psychic career. I mean, really, it's been highly successful. The fact that you've had your own business for 40 plus years and it's been successful, and you've been able to sustain your family with this, that's a success right there. But the fact that you also assist law enforcement with missing or murdered persons cases, you're part of this documentary as well. I know you mentioned one of your books is potentially being used for a movie. Yeah. What, out of everything, what do you feel has been one of your greatest successes, and what did you learn from it?
I believe that knowing I was fulfilling myself, because people have often asked me, will I be successful, or what is success? And I say, everybody has a different opinion of success. Some are financially successful. Some are, emotionally satisfied, heart wise. I believe it was because I really did follow what I knew was right for me and educated myself on it so that I was able to speak about it in a knowledgeable like way and get the support that I needed. That's what I feel is very important. And I tell people all the time, you want to create a support group for whatever you want to create in life, because it makes it so much easier to have someone to talk to that's championing you, that's asking you questions, that's giving brainstorming with you. That's really big, because it's not always easy to make a transition into something that you really believe you want to do, but you haven't maybe quite done it, or it hasn't financially taken care of you before. You can't figure out how it can financially take care of you. I think that's important.
Yeah. Oh, completely. No, it's very important. And like you said, it's important to find that support system that so you can be yourself. And being self-employed for as long as you have, it's I can only imagine all of the things that you've learned, because I know being self-employed, there's a lot of ups and downs that's mixed in there. Are there any insights, that for continued success that you can think of that you might provide others who are self-employed?
You have to be flexible.
Oh, yeah.
And you are right. I mean, there's no paid vacation. Medical, forget about it. And, and there's times where you think, oh my God, how am I going to make this house note? How am I going to pay? I remember there was a time between, do I keep the lights on, or do I keep the phone going?
Oh, yeah. Oh, making them.
Being a single parent and that. And you just have to say to yourself, and you do panic. I mean, you do feel it, especially financially, or you're just worn down with trying to make things happen. Why didn't people sign up for that class? Or all of the things that come along with self-employment. And sometimes you have to really realistically, logically look at it. Perhaps I need to get a part-time job. And I did over the times where there were certain areas where financially I had to come up with some more money. So it's the flexibility of not feeling, I would read for people, or I hear people say in the art world, especially, they don't appreciate me, or I can't make money at it. And there's a lot of truth to that. I know a lot of artists, personally and professionally. But I tell them, but you got to do it because you love it. Then get a side job to get you through those times. So the flexibility is very important when you have your own business. How do you come up with new plans? And now when the internet started coming, how did I change over to the new way of communicating with people? And, if you're not technical, that's a challenge. So you have to be flexible, and you have to be willing to be challenged. And if you need a job to get you through hard times, get something.
So you adapted to the technical. I mean, you've been at this for a long time, so you've had to adapt.
And a lot of it came through some clients where I used to. I always say you have to record your reading, because I really felt it was important, and that people have it afterwards instead of saying, "Well, you said this." I say, "Well, let's listen to the tape." And I had clients say, you got to make CDs. You have to. So I had to start buying different equipment. I had to get used to how do you use a computer. I bought my first computer in 1990, 91. How do I do this? So you have to be willing to adapt to the changing times. If you want to stay in business, you've got to research. You've got to see, why are other people successful? Why are they successful in doing it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and you brought up just being in that time of life where you are struggling and trying to figure out, pay this bill or that bill, and how to make do. And you know what? There's a lot of people in that situation right now because of this pandemic that we're in. Was there anything that helped give you strength during that time, that helped you keep going on, that might be helpful?
Well, feeling that I wanted to do what I was doing. It really became a deep purpose within me. I have to say, and then by then, my family, my sisters, I have seven siblings, and all my sisters were supportive of me. So my sisters, my girlfriends. When I put out my first book, we it was what they call a whole community, affair. We set up tables in my garage, and we went around and put the book together. And we had music and pizza and wine and everything going. And if it were not for my sisters, and that includes my friends, my girlfriends, all of them, that was what kept carrying me forward. It really was. It was just beautiful. And even a couple that didn't really believe in what I did, they just laughed, but they cared about me. And that's what kept carrying me forward.
Wow, doesn't it make all the difference? Yeah, I bet just thinking about your work really and what you're doing and the people that you would see, I would imagine that you would see a lot of people at vulnerable times in their lives and just kind of see people at difficult points. Is there anything that you learned about life by holding the type of role that you've held and talking to people during these difficult times?
Yes, I learned to tell people this too shall pass. And I learned how to listen. I'm quite a talker, as you probably know. But I learned how to really hear people. What are they really saying? Because I'm already reading their energy, and I'm hearing what they're saying on a different level. But I want to hear what they physically are telling me through their own words. I learned that most of us all have, and I don't care what age you are, what color you are, what race you are, what religion, we all have the same concerns in life. And they are about, will I be accepted? Will I be loved? Will I be able to financially take care of myself? How is my partner, my sisters, my children, how are they doing? That we're all alike, but we're all unique in our own way. And I learned so much from doing readings. As a matter of fact, I have often said I learned how to really live through reading for other people. How frightened we can be, and how nice it is to have somebody compassionately listening to us.
I find that some of the greatest lessons in life where I've learned the most are from those times where you stumble, that failure that, we don't want to call failure because you learn from it, but the obstacles and struggles in what you learn from it. What about a time for you that was a big obstacle or struggle, and what did you learn from it?
Well, one of it was when I realized I had to get divorced. Um, I had loved this person for so long. I actually chased him
Wow. Oh, that's
and
hard.
won him, and that was a big struggle because, for one thing, financially, I mean, I went down to. One time I looked at what was considered poverty level. I didn't do that financially, and I realized that I was living just below it. And so that was a big struggle when I did that. And it was a big struggle when I really decided. I had this temporary part-time kind of union gig, and it was mostly male dominated, but when I did work, I made good money. And that was the money I did to send my son to a good school. Um, and then when I had to come to the decision to let that go and really take that leap of faith that my business would sustain me, that my business would keep growing. And it was kind of a dark time. Instead of being jubilant about it, I spent a lot of nights crying and worrying and doing, as I said, I did arithmetic all night long.
To be yeah.
Bills and everything. So I think that financially it was, I ran into some really difficult times when my brother came to me and told me that he and my father decided I was working for the devil and I was evil. That was a really painful time.
Ooh, gosh, that is painful. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, and I wanted to prove I'm not, working for the devil. And how did I do that? Well, I think I had to just tap into my own spirituality of understanding in my life how God and my deities supported me. But there was a lot of dark times for me, thinking I should give up what I'm doing. Like people were telling me, you need a real job. You got a kid. You need a real job.
People can be very, very mean.
Yeah. So like, how can I keep going? So it is difficult over the times. And certainly I feel for people right now, how difficult it is for them to even get up in the morning.
So it sounds like for you, it was that internal purpose, that knowing your why is what kept you going.
Knowing that I valued, knowing that this is me. I'm not putting it on. Some people said I was phony. I was acting. I was a con. I got called. Yeah, I tell people, you want to get in this kind of business, you better get ready for all kinds of name calling.
No, I would imagine you get that a lot. I mean, because there are a lot of very genuine psychics, but there are others that are scamming. I mean, do you have advice to people on how you can determine if you're consulting with someone who is?
Well, that's why I wrote my first book. My first book was for people to understand not only how to find a psychic, but how to tell if they're actually genuine, and with the kinds of things that they would say to you. Like, you don't need a psychic say, well, you need to come back for another reading. I used to say to people, don't come back for another reading for a year or two, at least. And, finding out, psychics, people say, well, you're just reading my mind. Well, there's people that are good at that. They can read your body language, and I'll tell you something. People want to tell you everything. And I tell them, please don't tell me anything. Well, I'm retired, so I don't have to deal with that anymore. But I ask people, don't tell me anything, and they still want to tell me stuff.
It's the human nature.
So to me, it's like, how do you find a good lawyer? How do you find how do you find an honest lawyer, an honest doctor? You have to be aware. You should do your homework. That's how I look at it. And don't believe everything a psychic tells you. The rest is up to you. Listen to it. Decide if you are agreeable to work it out, and does it have a good meaning to your life? So this is all I wrote in my first book about. How do you get there? What do you do when you're there? What do you do with the information after?
So if a psychic tells you something you don't want to hear, you can just not accept that.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read for all kinds of people. I've had therapists send me clients because I don't know what to do with them. I've worked with the police, as you know, and so I've met people of every walk in life, and even people that didn't speak English that brought interpreters for them. So I have a lot of experience in it, and I have said over the years, only the brave come back for another reading for me, because I can't sugarcoat things that have to be said. I'm not going to want you just to feel good. If you come back, you come back. If you don't, you don't. But this is what I'm saying. So you kind of make what makes you unique? Like, what makes somebody want to come to me instead of another reader? And that's of anybody in business. What makes you unique? And I guess whatever I have made me unique enough that people came.
Yeah. How did you get involved with working with law enforcement?
Well, the first case is I had this very strange dream, and it was very violent, and a woman was being murdered, and I saw everything. And I was pointed to a good friend of mine. So I called her in the morning, I couldn't sleep. I said, I need to come over to the house. So I made all these little scribble notes. I sent my son to school. I went over her house, and I started to tell her about, this is what I saw. And she goes, oh my God, that's my neighbor's friend that her sister just got murdered, last week. So the first time was the spirit came to me. I didn't know anything about this. And that's how I became involved the first time. The second time, a client came to me late one night, called me, 10 o'clock at night. I'm already in bed. But she said, I need to come over. My sister-in-law hasn't come home missing. Could you please let me come over? So she came over. I drew a picture of what I believed the man she was with. I told her enough information. The next day she went to the police, and that's how I eventually got involved. They didn't come to me right away, but they came months later. A homicide detective came and talked to me.
Wow. That just gives me chills. That's just great.
Yeah. When people say, oh, you were in murder, it was horrible. It's nothing I would ever want to experience. As a matter of fact, I got out of it. I've been asked a few times, and I've worked on a few other cases, and I just say, it's not for me. I don't want to go through this anymore.
I can only imagine how difficult that would be to go through it. But I also the help that you must have provided to those family.
Yeah, it's very sad. It's very, very sad talking to the relatives. Extremely, you're not only talking about death. I've done plenty of seance and spirit communication. You're talking about a tragedy. That's a big difference. So in anybody's business, you're going to run into really hard times, clients or people. It's how you're going to have to communicate and how you're going to have to handle it. Again, being flexible, how I would talk to somebody about a problem they have compared to somebody who's going through a tragedy is two different things.
So did you work with law enforcement? Is that what led to the documentary series, or was that something separate?
It was something separate. I had read for the producer of that a few years. Her mother had died of cancer, and then a few years later, she became involved with her own thing out at the State College here in San Francisco, and she was taking a film class. And so it was a project, and she became involved with this other group, paranormal group, just out of part of her project. And so she called me and she asked me, would you like to do this? She goes, I know you're retired, but would you like to do this? And I said, I don't know, where are we going to go? What are we going to investigate? And she said, how about the Zodiac? Where the Zodiac went, the murders. I said, no way. You shouldn't even go there. That's bad juju. And so finally she came up with the Condor Club, which is a pretty much infamous strip club in San Francisco, the first topless club in the United States. I said, I always wanted to go there. Being a lady, you didn't go to those.
Yeah.
Ladies didn't go to those kind of places. Only bad men, naughty men. So we went there, and I just enjoyed it. We went there at 8 a.m. because it was a long story. Anyway, we went there, and it was just a pretty cool experience. And I've, as I said, did a lot of spirit communication and seances, and this was very different, investigating the energy. And the wonderful part, and I insist on this with this producer, is you've got to find out historically. I like to be a creative person, but you got to add something to it where it has some sort of meaning. And so I wanted her to look things up. And then she asked me to do another one. I said, oh, okay. And then she started asking me to do one. I'm like, where are we going? And how long will it take? And
that's fantastic.
I'm there, I have a good time.
Yeah, how interesting. So there's all the different places around the bay, basically, and it's the history and the haunting of the story of the place.
So it's fun and interesting, and that's another thing of people. As you build a business, you go along and you make these connections, and the connections are really important for your business. You got to make connections. You can't be the wallflower. You got to put your face out there, and you've got to get and talk. Even when I wrote the book and was with the authors, I joined this Wild Women Writing Woman kinship thing. And I went to a lot of seminars and workshops. And one thing that they say, that authors have to be willing to speak out, how you stand at the podium, how you introduce yourself. And that's where authors often failed. And I grasped it right away. You have got to be willing to share what you know and why you know it, and take questions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it is something that people get a little scared of, putting themselves out there like that. Absolutely. Do you have advice for someone who does feel that way? I mean, because I agree, networking, those connections, these are vital to success. But what if someone has that shyness within them? Yeah, I mean, do you have advice for them how to put themselves out?
Then you could take a class, or go speak at some groups. What do they call it? The groups you go and you introduce. Yes, and long ago I took a class in debating, and from junior high school on. They call it middle school now, but anyway, there are techniques to learn. And I'll tell you, I almost feel sick to my stomach when I have to go and do a lot of these talks. Like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. But there's techniques. You can learn techniques. You learn a technique so much that it's almost not necessarily you, that it is a part of you that you can separate, say, okay, for half an hour, I will be this person that talks. I will be this person that introduces myself. And you can learn techniques how to do it, how you dress, how you stand, how your voice comes. You can learn all of it.
You're right. Oh, when you said that, it made me think of the movie How to Buy a Zoo, where he tells his son, all you need is 30 seconds of bravery. And I always tell my kids that, but it's true. Just like you said, if you're going to do a speech, you just do 30 minutes and get up there and do that speech. All you need is that, just bolster yourself for that moment, or the 30 seconds to go introduce yourself. And once you introduce yourself, you're going to feel more comfortable. You're not going to feel so
Yeah,
off.
to have a strong beginning and a strong ending.
Oh, yeah.
Start out where you catch their ear, and most people don't listen to can't really grasp everything in between. And then you end it and they go, oh, that person's really great. There's all kinds of things. My son was very shy. And according to everybody else, extremely handsome. I mean, I'm his mother. He's always going to look good, right? But, and he would just mumble. I go, you're going to have to raise your head, stand up, and look over everybody's head. Or find out one person that's looking at you, nodding their head like, oh, I get you. There's all kinds of ways to do it, and it's hard. So I won't make it like it's easy. It's hard.
Yeah, no, it's not easy. But like you said, there are tools, and the tools work. And it's so worth it once you start applying them, because the more you apply them, the easier it gets.
Yes. And kind of, you know what you're talking about. To begin with, you wouldn't get out making the talk if you did not have something worthwhile to say. And those people would not be there if they did not want to hear you. I've bombed a few times. I bombed at one big thing in New York.
And how
Oh
do you
my
feel
God.
that when you bomb?
Oh man, I drank coffee. I'm not really a coffee drinker, but it was later at night I was on, and it was at the Whole Life Expo at New York. And I just bombed. I was shaking. I didn't know. I stumbled over words, and I could just be, some people got up and left.
Oh, it happens. It happens.
Oh, I can laugh now. I did not laugh for a long time. Trust me.
But did you quit or did you keep going?
I kept going. And surprisingly, I sold a lot of books. So
So there you go. So basically, you made it through your speech, you sold books, you've gone on to do more speeches, and it really didn't affect you in a negative way overall. Is that correct?
I think what it did teach me is one thing: you're going to fail. If you're in business, guess what? You're going to fail, and you might even fail a whole lot. I mean, I failed with classes and talks, and like I said, and book sales and whatever. And every time you fail, you got to say, well, what did I get out of that? Like what I got out of that New York is I was kind of cocky. I drank coffee. I didn't prepare enough. Like you have to talk your speeches out quite a few times before you get up there at the podium. And it taught me how to get more prepared.
Yeah,
You have to be willing to openly take critiques. I don't like criticism because I don't think it really helps, but critiques and ask people. I ask people, hey, how did that go? What did you think of when I did? And they'll say, well, June, I kind of like this, but what was that when you kind of started doing whatever they're saying to me? And so I take note, like, all right, don't on Zoom, don't look at the people, look up at the at the bright light. You have to be flexible. You have to be willing to take people telling you stuff to make you better.
Yeah, and keep learning. Yeah, we just keep getting better when we take that feedback in. Don't let it get us down, but take it in, learn from it, and develop ourselves to be better. Yeah. On that note, I mean, are there specific habits that you've developed over the years that you feel have helped make you successful?
Well, yes, and that is, I'm talking about something that I know about. Even if someone asks me a question or whatever, I'm not going to get befuddled like I did in New York, for one thing, and other places. I also spoke for a defense attorney association, and a very nice setting, though, I must say. And I learned, be prepared. Even if you know what you're talking about, you should speak it out in front of a mirror. You should speak it into now you can do cell phones and listen back to how you speak. You have to look at, what is your voice tone like? Did somebody say you should speak from your diaphragm? Should you stand up tall? You want to be prepared by studying yourself. How do you come across? Definitely, if you go into something not prepared, even if you have as much information of what you're going to talk about, there could be somebody out there that throws you a curveball.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, this is good advice on every level, including even interviews. You know? You need to be prepared for.
Yeah, read over.
Mhm, mhm. Well, and that preparation also gives you confidence. So,
Absolutely.
yeah, when you have that preparation, you can see it and, well, you feel it, and therefore others can see it. So,
Yes, very good point. I read that recently. Well, recently, probably a year ago, and that is if you go for a job interview and you do not feel comfortable or relaxed, the other person picks it up right away. And it doesn't have to be something you said. It can just be the mannerism, your body language.
100%. It makes a big difference. So, in fact, I'll tell people if they're feeling insecure before they've even walked in the door, they need to spend a few minutes adjusting their feelings, and they can do so by using their body language, and simply by standing in the Wonder Woman position for 2 minutes can actually change the way your brain feels and change your confidence level. It's pretty neat. So before before we wrap up here, I'd like to see if there was anything that we haven't discussed. If there's, like, for example, is there one change you feel listeners could make right now that might help get them closer to their own success?
One of the things is you want to really make a list of what do you value in life. When I ask people that, of course, they say my mother, my father, my kid, my husband. We go through relationships. I say, but what do you value? Do you value your time alone? Do you value freedom? Do you value beauty? It's finding out what has meaning to you in life, and it doesn't. You can apply your values and be very happy in a simple position. Say your position is filing. I hate to file. And, but somebody could very calmly and very enjoy being on their own. And, what is your uniqueness? What makes you feel good about what you are doing? And even if you're in a position that you don't really like. And I heard this back in the 60s from a guru and said, even if you're doing something you don't like cleaning the toilets in a janitorial position, you don't like it, but do your best job because it is an extension of who you are. And I think that that's important. I kept that in my mind when I had to do different jobs and what have you. And I had to make all those notes for classes and stuff. I didn't like all that. I was like, oh, I'll just tell them things. But I had to write all these notes and type and everything. And I thought, well, no, that's adding to what I'm doing. So keep it close to your heart, what you value, what you like, what you know about yourself. You're a good person. You're a knowledgeable person. You have something. Recognize it without the sense of outblowing ego, but certainly a place of appreciation for your uniqueness, talent, skills, abilities. I think it's important.
It is important, and it gets buried often in as you go on through life because.
And compare yourself to no one,
Yeah, yeah,
no
hmm,
comparison.
yeah, no comparisons.
You can learn from other people. If you like the way that they present themselves, you like the way they dress, you like the way they speak. I've often said to people, pick a couple of people that you've really admired in history or right now, and how can you emulate them? Because we do that. As children, that's how we learn. Families all have the same facial kind of
Uh-huh.
expressions.
Yep, yep.
We're gonna be all right. Like I love Jackie Kennedy. I mean, I loved her from the beginning. I loved the way she spoke. She was so ladylike that I thought I could be a little more ladylike.
You, you're so right. Yeah, growing up, we learn from our families. That's who we're exposed to. But as adults, we can choose who to learn from.
Exactly.
That's very powerful. And we can choose those lessons and implement them in our own lives. We have the power to do that. That's great. Thank you so much, June. This has
Okay.
been
Thank
so
you.
wonderful. I really appreciate your time.
All right, Jolie. And Jolie, is that, that's a French word, right?
Yeah, yes, it is.
Yeah. And the song Jolie, the old Cajun song. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, all the French students always would love to come and tell me, "Do you know what your name means?"
Yeah. Jolie. All right. Well, thank you. This was fun. You're easy to talk to.
There is a lot for us to learn from June's story. She shared how she worked a variety of other jobs at the beginning of her career, but after experiencing a life-threatening accident, things inside of her changed. She started to feel unsettled in her work, as if she didn't belong, and she was feeling unfulfilled. How many of us find ourselves in this very position, that unfulfilled position, and then we do nothing about it? June listened to what she was feeling internally and started to drift away from the situations and the people who left her feeling unfulfilled. She found the things that interested her. She found the things that made that tuning fork inside of her sing. And she started going to workshops and classes around her new fascinations. She learned from other people and started filling her own bucket while getting comfortable with these new learnings. Once she mastered the teachings, she was asked if she could share her knowledge, and she then started hosting her own workshops, her own classes, as well as building her psychic practice. June successfully found a way to fulfill herself and use her gift to help others. This for her is true success. And she found her support group for what she wanted to create. She found those champions willing to be there with her, asking questions, brainstorming, and believing in her. That support group is vital. You need those people who you can be 100% yourself with, and who will stick with you through those ups and downs. If you have that support system, count yourself lucky and be grateful. If you don't have that support system, there are things that you can do to try and help build it. Think about, what are your interests, your curiosities, your dreams, whatever they may be. I'm fairly positive there are groups that cater to those interests. Find your people. Look up the local groups and online groups or volunteer opportunities and join as many as you can. You have to put yourself out there. And I know that's not always comfortable for many people, but you have to get out there in order to find your people. And once you do, you will be so very grateful. It's a life changer when you find your people. If this idea fills you with terror, which I imagine it would for some, perhaps you find some classes or workshops that help you with that type of fear. To reach the success that we are all capable of, we do have to put ourselves out there. We do have to share what we know and meet new people. Find classes that offer coping techniques that you can implement to bolster yourself. Toastmasters is an example of an excellent organization that will provide you with the learning tools to make this aspect of life much, much easier, and provide you with a skill set that will help in countless aspects of your career. Look into these types of things. June shares that the key to her success has been being flexible, adaptable, and keeping up with the changes. She stays aware of changing trends, of changing technologies and where the market is going, and then she makes adjustments accordingly. She advises that you look at what your competitors are doing, whatever they're doing successfully, and then figure out how you can implement those strategies as well. Taking the time to research and find out what others are doing to be successful really could lead to significant impacts in your work. When was the last time you took a good look at your competition? It might just be time for a quick review. June's work also taught her how much alike we all are at the core. Us humans, regardless of age, race, nationality, sexuality, or whatever box that you want to use to try to make us different, deep down, we all have the same feelings. Will I be accepted? Will I be loved? Will I be able to take care of myself and my family financially? How are my loved ones doing? Knowing this and understanding this can change how you look at everyone. It doesn't matter how different a human being can look or be from you. That soul also just wants to be loved. Taking the time to listen and be compassionate can not only ease others' internal tensions, but it will also radically transform your relationships and your life. Ask yourself, have I been really listening to the people closest to me? Have I been showing them the compassion that they need? If the answer is no, or maybe not, perhaps today is the perfect day to spend some time listening and empathizing to the people around you. June shared that she had moments when she bombed. Okay, she had a talk that did not go well and people got up and left in the middle of it. We have all experienced these types of painful moments. But June did not give up. She made it through that speech. She sold her books. She learned from the experience and went on to do many, many more speeches. As June shares, the most important thing about failing or making mistakes is asking yourself, what did I get out of this? What did I learn? For that example, June had learned about the importance of being prepared. Even if you know what you're talking about, speak about it beforehand. Know the voice tone you want to use. Know how you want to come across in the message that you want to convey. Preparation gives you confidence. You will feel that confidence internally, which will translate into others seeing that confidence within you. This is not just advice for speeches. This is great advice for everything. You should diligently prepare anything that has an outcome which is important to you. She also learned how important it is to be open to taking critiques. Asking people what they think and requesting that honest feedback will provide you with the information that will allow you to keep getting better and better. True intelligence is knowing that you don't know everything. Open yourself up to hear constructive suggestions that will allow you to become even better at your craft. Now, keep in mind, this is for constructive critiques, coming from people who want to build you up and see you succeed. Do not take negative feedback meant to tear you down. If someone is struggling with themselves internally and feels the need to try to bring you down to make themselves feel better, you do not need to let that in. Just tell them, thank you for sharing, but that doesn't work for me, and move on to the next person. Remember that people who carry that type of negative criticism, they really have the most criticism and judgment for themselves. It rarely has anything to do with you and everything to do with them. Another great tip that June shared is to pick people that you admire in history or who are alive right now and emulate what it is that you admire about them. Learn about their habits and implement those same habits into your life. We have the power to choose what we are learning and who we are learning it from. Ask yourself, who has been influencing your life lately? Do they have the lives that you yourself want to live? If the answer is no, find the right people to be your new influencers. June also suggests making a list of what you truly value in life. And she's saying not your relationships or your possessions, but what you value internally. What makes you you? Do you value time alone, freedom, nature, beauty, honesty? What makes your soul sing? Know what has meaning to you in life and then apply your values to everything you do. Really get in touch with your uniqueness and celebrate it. Keep it close to your heart. What you know about yourself can easily get buried as we get older and deal with everything and everyone that life has to offer. So make sure you're getting in touch with what you value, what you like, what you know about yourself, and appreciate what makes you you. She also reminds us to compare ourselves to no one. This is incredibly important. I have actually had a quote on our bathroom wall for years to remind my kids of this very thing every time they use the restroom. It says, comparing yourself to others is a fool's game and will steal your joy. The only person to compare yourself to is the person that you were yesterday. I'll leave you with this final thought from June. no matter what you do, even if you hold a position that you don't like cleaning the toilets, do the absolute very best job you can, because it is an extension of who you are. You must take pride in yourself and what you offer. No matter what you do in work or in the world, you absolutely can make a difference as a leader without a title. Regardless of what you do it with joy. Do it with all your heart, and you will make a difference in this world. Remind yourself each and every day when you go to work to do it fully. Do it with happiness in your heart, and know that you have the power to bring joy to each and every person you come in contact with. What a difference you can make. Until next time. Thank you for spending time with us on Fresh Blood. If you love this episode, please consider subscribing, rating, or giving us a review. I'm looking forward to connecting with you again on the next episode.